will go high. Love, grace, humility will win. And then you tell everybody to go to hell. You think that's going to work for you, Coach White? Think that's going to work for you? The reality of the situation is none of that stuff will win if it's left up to you, Stephanie White. Because you're not handling it right. You playing right into their hands. Right into their hands.
What happens when a coach who was supposed to have her players' backs suddenly becomes the center of the controversy? That is the question now hanging over Stephanie White and the Indiana Fever. What started with one heated moment involving Sophie Cunningham and DeJonai Carrington quickly turned into something much bigger, and Stephen A. Smith was not willing to let it slide. He didn't simply question one coaching decision. He questioned White's leadership. The controversy erupted after Carrington was ejected during Indiana's August 8th matchup against Chicago following contact with Cunningham around the head and neck area. Officials ruled it a flagrant 2, ending Carrington's night immediately. White later explained that she believed the play was handled correctly in real time, but after seeing the replay repeatedly, she acknowledged how serious the contact looked. That explanation only created more questions. Critics wanted to know why the coach had not reacted more strongly in the moment. Then the story took another turn. Stephen A. Smith argued that this was no longer just about one foul. In his view, a head coach has a responsibility to recognize when one of her players is put in danger and respond accordingly. And when fans inside Indiana's own arena started booing White, the controversy reached an entirely different level. But the biggest surprise was still coming, because Caitlin Clark and her teammates were about to make it clear where they stood.
Player safety is always a top priority for me. One of the things I pride myself on is my relationships with players. I thought the play got called right. Thankfully, Sophie's okay. Was it egregious? Absolutely. When you have a chance to watch that over and over and over on replay, you can see that. I didn't have that in real time. The hate, the fear-mongering, the divisiveness, the stuff that's trying to hijack our league will not win. It won't win. We are united. We are connected.
The real problem was not just the foul. It was what happened after it. Once the replay began circulating, fans started comparing what they saw on the court with what Stephanie White said afterward, and that gap became the fuel for the entire controversy. White explained that she did not have the benefit of replay in real time, but critics argued that a coach should still recognize when a player has taken a dangerous hit. That disagreement might have remained a basketball debate, except the situation became personal when White's relationship with DeJonai Carrington entered the conversation. Carrington had previously played under White, which led some fans online to question whether that familiarity affected White's initial reaction. There is no proof that it did, and that speculation should not be treated as fact. But once fans started asking the question, the conversation became impossible to control. Stephen A. Smith took the criticism even further. He argued that White appeared more focused on defending the broader situation than directly defending Sophie Cunningham, and he questioned whether that was the kind of leadership Indiana needed. Then White pushed back hard, insisting that she always has her players' backs and rejecting what she described as divisive attacks surrounding the league. Suddenly, this was no longer just about Carrington and Cunningham. It was about trust, leadership, and whether a coach can survive when the people outside the locker room have stopped believing in her. And then came the moment that made the entire situation explode. Fever fans began booing their own coach.
Embracing the reality of the tense situation that the WNBA, and especially you as the coach of the Indiana Fever, is involved in. There are folks in Indiana at a home game booing you. You ain't the road team, you the home team, you the home coach, and they booing you. And Sophie Cunningham and Caitlin Clark can speak up for you all they want to, as they did, and as they should have.
The moment Fever fans started booing Stephanie White inside her own arena, the controversy stopped looking like ordinary criticism. This was her home building. These were supposed to be the people giving Indiana an advantage, yet some of them were openly turning against the coach. Stephen A. Smith seized on that detail because, in his argument, being booed by your own fan base is a warning sign that cannot simply be dismissed as social media noise. But there was another side to the story. Inside the locker room, the picture appeared completely different. Caitlin Clark publicly defended White and reportedly made it clear that seeing the coach booed made her feel sick. Sophie Cunningham also supported White through the controversy. That created a fascinating split. Fans were questioning the coach, while the players were standing beside her. And that distinction matters because a coach can lose public confidence without necessarily losing the locker room. Indiana then had a chance to answer everything on the court. Instead of collapsing under the pressure, the Fever responded with a statement of their own. But the victory only made the bigger question more interesting. Was White actually losing control, or were the players proving that the outside noise was much louder than what was happening inside the team?
White, I've been a defender, the coach of the Fever. Get her out of there. Get her out of there. Fire her ass today. I don't want her back on that bench. Stop defending the other players. Oh, she plays hard, DJ. That's just her being her. You see Caitlin in the press conference almost cover her ears and her eyes. Defend your players. First of all, you're wrong. It was a dirty play. She's gone. But when do you ever see in like the NBA, a coach not defend their own players? She hasn't done it with Caitlin when Caitlin got punched in the
Then Caitlin Clark did something that carried more weight than any angry debate online. She played. Against the New York Liberty, Clark delivered 22 points and 10 assists as Indiana powered to a 106-92 victory. The Fever also recorded their 15th 100-point game of the season, giving the team a perfect opportunity to shift the conversation away from controversy and back toward basketball. While critics were demanding answers about Stephanie White, Clark and her teammates were producing results on the court. That does not automatically erase the questions surrounding the coach, but it changes the atmosphere. Clark's public support for White also sent a powerful message. Whatever fans may think about the coach, the players were not interested in allowing the controversy to fracture their locker room. For White, that support could be extremely important. Coaches can survive criticism when their players still believe in them. What becomes dangerous is when both the locker room and the fan base begin moving in the same direction against them. Indiana had not reached that point. In fact, the team appeared determined to prove the opposite. But Stephen A. Smith was still not satisfied because his criticism went beyond one controversial play. He believed the bigger issue was whether White was meeting the standard expected from a head coach. And that brought the debate straight to the question nobody wanted to answer. Stephen A. Smith's strongest argument was not simply that Stephanie White got one decision wrong. His argument was that leadership becomes most important when everything gets uncomfortable. A coach can support a player without defending every action that player takes. A coach can protect the team while still admitting that something went wrong. And a coach can have a relationship with a former player without allowing that relationship to influence professional judgment. That is the standard Smith was demanding from White. Critics pointed to other controversial moments involving the Fever and argued that White had repeatedly failed to provide the kind of public defense they expected from a coach. Those claims are heavily debated, and some of the harsher accusations circulating online go far beyond what can actually be established. But the perception itself has become a problem. Once fans believe a coach is inconsistent, every new statement gets examined differently. White tried to push back by emphasizing love, grace, humility, integrity, and unity. Her message was that outside forces were trying to divide the team, and she refused to let that happen. Yet the response created another layer of tension because her emotional defense came while critics were demanding accountability. That is the tightrope White is now walking. If she becomes too defensive, critics say she is avoiding the issue. If she admits too much, they say she is confirming their concerns. And with Caitlin Clark at the center of one of the biggest stories in women's basketball, there is almost no room for a quiet mistake. But there is one thing that can silence almost every argument: winning. At this point, the controversy has become bigger than the original foul. Stephen A. Smith has questioned Stephanie White's leadership. Fans have booed her inside her own arena. Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham have publicly shown support. The Fever have responded with wins. And White has made it clear that she believes the criticism has crossed a line. So where does the story go from here? The answer may be decided almost entirely on the basketball court. If Indiana keeps winning, the controversy surrounding White could gradually lose its power. Fans may still disagree with her decisions, but winning creates breathing room. Every strong performance gives her another reason to point toward the team rather than the noise surrounding it. But if the Fever begin losing, All those unresolved questions could come rushing back. The booing could become louder. Every rotation could be questioned. Every timeout could become another debate. Every press conference could produce another headline. That is why this moment matters so much. White does not necessarily need to win an argument with Stephen A. Smith. She needs to convince her players, her organization, and eventually the fans that she is the right person to lead this team. Caitlin Clark has already shown where she stands. The locker room appears to have her back. Now the pressure is on White to turn that support into results. Because in the end, Stephen A. Smith may have started the confrontation, but Stephanie White will decide how the next chapter is written.